soil enrichment program will help increase the size and number of roots in your grass. Call 753-LAWN.
Are you a hot sleeper? Warm summer nights can make it hard to sleep. UNI Furniture recommends sleeping cooler with a gel memory foam mattress. UNI features a copper-infused gel memory foam that helps with coolness and circulation. It moves better with you, giving you the best night's sleep. UNI is also the home of Chair Heaven. There's a reason they sell so many chairs, including recliners. For over 90 years, there's always been a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. On a day in late May when the Logan River was running at near capacity, Ian Gowing directed the launch of an Aggie Air Service Center drone over the river to try and understand the extent of any potential flooding and capture images of it. Dr. Gowing, who is the director of the Aggie Air Service, had the pilot, Austin Washke, fly the unmanned aerial vehicle over the river from about First Dam through the city and onto the Logan River Golf Course, and finally to an area past the golf course.
From the First Dam down to the Logan River, the water primarily stayed within the channel, which it's supposed to do. And beyond that, obviously, the floodplain became inundated with the floodwater.
Gowing said officials from Logan and Nibley were interested in detailed pictures of the flooding, but also wanted to see how successful their mitigation efforts had been.
Absolutely, yeah. From the imagery we collected, the pixel resolution was actually 4.3 centimeters. So it gave enormous clarity of just exactly where the water was topping the bank.
Images indicated Logan was successful in flood prevention given the volume of water flowing through the system, which finally broadened out just past the Logan River Golf Course. The Aggie Air Service Center is housed at USU's Utah Water Research Laboratory. And two advocacy groups and an attorney who works with sexual assault victims are suing Idaho over a new law that makes it illegal to help minors get an abortion without their parents' consent. Abortion is already banned in Idaho at all stages of pregnancy, but the law enacted in May seeks to prevent minors who don't have parental approval from getting abortions in states where the procedure is legal. Violating the law is a felony punishable by at least 2 and up to 5 years in prison. The Legal Voice activist group filed the lawsuit in federal court Tuesday on behalf of Nampa attorney Lourdes Matsumoto, the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, and the Indigenous Idaho Alliance. All of the plaintiffs work with and sometimes assist minors who are seeking abortions, and they want to continue that work without the threat of prosecution. They contend the law is overly vague and violates both their First Amendment right to discuss abortion with minors and their Fourth Amendment right to travel freely between states. KVNU News Time is 4:08. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Information and news you need. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
What if you could come home every day to a peaceful retreat nestled in the mountains? A place that's only minutes from downtown Logan, but offers access to national forests from your own backyard, surrounded by mountains, horse riding, hiking trails, babbling brooks, and more. All this at Maple Creek Ranch, which is now in its fourth and final phase of development. 2.5-acre lots, your own piece of paradise that's remote yet accessible. And road improvements will be completed this summer. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Go to maplecreekranch.net. Maple Creek Ranch, just east of Franklin, Idaho.
The results are in for the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Pick up your free copy of the Winners Magazine. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com to find magazine pickup locations. Nearly 700,000 votes were cast to determine gold and silver winners. Help us recognize these businesses and let's support all of our local businesses by shopping local. Thank you for participating in the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
I'm Elizabeth Smart. Sexual exploitation and violence are unimaginable crimes that far too many people in our communities experience. In the U.S. alone, a person is sexually assaulted every 68 seconds. Every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. It's time these numbers change. Learn more about how you can join me in the fight against child sexual exploitation at malouffoundation.org.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then, someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Why did I wait so long to see a retina specialist?
Retinal disease can steal your eyesight, but it doesn't have to. Patients who seek care from a retina specialist have the best chance of preventing vision loss due to age-related macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy. AMD symptoms to look out for are distortion or warping of straight lines, as well as blurred or loss of central vision. Patients with diabetic retinopathy should seek treatment if they notice the appearance of spots or floaters or blurred and distorted vision. Visit seeforalifetime.org.
When you take a walk around your neighborhood and notice all the things that make it feel like home, one thing might be a little harder to notice because somewhere tucked in that neat row of houses is hunger. Over 30 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming from. At Albertsons Companies and Safeway Foundations, we are on a mission to provide 1 billion meals by 2030 because everyone should be welcome at the table. Learn more at nourishingneighbors.com. Let's break the cycle of hunger together.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends, look closer. Right in your community, there are youth who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So, look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. Covenant House is the national leader providing safe housing for youth, 50 years strong. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. Every youth who walks into Covenant House gets clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So, look closer at Covenant House and help us fight youth homelessness. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
We are there in your community. Small business owners, mechanics, police officers, homemakers. And we are there serving our nation in the Air Force Reserve. When medical emergencies arise, we meet the challenge. In cybersecurity, protecting and defending in cyberspace. When natural disasters happen, we are there in space. As a strong part of the nation's defense, we are there in the community and we are there for our nation. We share a vision to make a difference, united and focused, taking pride in being there in service of our country. We are Reserve Citizen Airmen, and we are there with over 180 different jobs to serve your country. Air Force Reserve.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello.
Yes, is Katie Jensen there?
This is Katie.
A listener contacted our radio station anonymously to tell us about some of the work that you do there at the English Language Center as the director and all of the lives that you've impacted for our community. We just want to thank you with a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs.
So cool.
Recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community. Friday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk KVNU. For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 a.m. and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday, July 12th. Thank you for joining us here on the show today. We had planned to start off with some information. We've been getting just inundated with, and this isn't a complaint, I'm fascinated by it really, but just inundated with interest and questions and opinions, everything in between, on the future of the Cache Valley Mall. For those who, maybe for any reason, let me back up. Let me back up a little bit. I don't know if you mentioned it during the news there, Bill. I was caught on a phone call, but if you are sitting on northbound Main Street right now and traffic is moving a wee bit slow, I'm guessing they are very close to cleaning it up at this point. They were close when I got caught in it about half an hour ago. But it looked like they still had some work to do with one of the vehicles. But if you're sitting out there on the highway, you're coming into Logan, and traffic's moving really slow, if you have the option to leave Main Street, do so as soon as you can, because that traffic backup goes all the way to 3rd South.
Yeah, I never heard what it was.
It was an accident.
Oh, was it an accident?
I meant to send you a picture that I'd taken to give you an idea of the traffic. And then I got a very important phone call from a guest that we had scheduled today, and I didn't get a chance to send that to you. But, yeah, I got caught in this myself, and so just letting everybody know, if you're sitting out there and traffic's moving very slow, it moves very slow. It's moving. When I first got caught in it, it was not moving at all. I was attempting to make a turn right onto Main Street, and I finally did, and then I regretted it because it was not. I didn't have another choice, but yeah, it was just at a standstill for a long, long time. But it is moving, just crawling, and that's because there was a accident, looked to be minor, but two vehicles involved at just south of 3rd South, but it's affecting traffic all the way up to 3rd South, and it's just crawling along there. So if you're out on the highway, the traffic was backed up. I mean, it looked like it almost went down to the golf course from where I could see. So if you're sitting out there on the highway and traffic's moving slowly, if it's moving fast, they've cleaned it up, and never mind. But if you're sitting out there and it's moving slowly still, like it was for me a few minutes ago, you're going to want to exit Main Street if you're in a hurry, because any other route is going to be faster. It does return to normal speeds and normal traffic levels after 3rd South if you're headed northbound. And again, southbound unaffected by this. Traffic was just moving, other than a little turkey necking, it was moving at regular speeds. So there, backed up to that. So now back to what I had kind of started with there. Since the story broke at CacheValleyDaily.com that a proposal had been submitted to Logan City for the future of the current site of the Cache Valley Mall, and that proposal, again, is to demolish the mall, replace it with 4 different apartment buildings, and a big retail space, which just happens to be exactly the square footage Target wants before choosing to locate somewhere. And then, some other stuff. There would be maybe some changes coming after the fact to surrounding buildings and traffic flows and things like that. And then there would be a hotel on the area as well. that news, again, we broke that at CashFlyDaily.com weeks ago, and that story shared on the KVNU Facebook page got more comments than I think anything before. It was just people obviously have feel a vested interest in the mall, the location of the mall, whether they lived in Logan or not. Everyone has memories of the mall. I have my own set of nostalgic memories of the mall, and it's just, it's absolutely amazing to see this kind of reaction. But since then, what we've been getting a lot of are people wanting to know where things are at, and what the changes might be. Because remember, the city itself is it's still, I mean, this is a proposal that has been submitted to the city. The city has signed off on nothing so far other than, I would say, they've signaled that they want to move ahead with something, that this can't stay the mall the way it is. And there are a lot of reasons for that, none of them Logan City's fault. Let me put it this way. I think there are more people that commented on the story with an opinion of what happens to the current mall site in the future than go to the mall on the average week, or in the average week. That would be my guess. And that's no one's fault. It's just, retail habits and shopping habits and preferences change and evolve over the years. There was a time when you couldn't get enough of malls in downtown. So remember Salt Lake's, 5-story Crossroads Mall? That was right in downtown. Like, that was prime real estate, and it was considered worth it to put a mall there. And then they couldn't, after 20 years and the popularity of that faded, they couldn't tear that down fast enough. Now, this isn't in downtown. The Emporium was. Glad to see that gone. But this is outside of downtown, but it is still prime real estate, considering proximity to the university with those bus lines for transit, walking distance from movie theaters, restaurants, retail, multiple retail options, and more. Perfect place for housing for new families that want to live in an area where they can do most of their time. They can walk everywhere. Outside of maybe traveling to work in a car or on a bus, when it comes to their nightlife and their weekends, they could walk to a lot of things. That's a very popular thing now. So this housing is going to be full in a second. I don't think that's even a concern. What was really the debate is what should go in the retail space. I was shocked to see what I think is one of the worst ideas for this retail space that would exist if this proposal moves ahead, which was a lot of comments of a lot of people saying it needs to be a Topgolf. No. No, it most certainly do not. But that's just my opinion. Others are going to disagree. And that's what has been kind of fun to watch play out. So again, we've had people left and right asking, where are things at? Is it moving ahead? Has the city signed off on it? Are they going to sign off on it? Well, to be honest with you, there really isn't any news on that. I mean, there's some, but there isn't any news as to the proposal itself. The city is still reviewing it. The council is reviewing it. And it's going to be a while. So now the proposal, as writ, means they want to begin, the owners, the new owners, newish owners of the mall property, they want to move ahead with this by the end of the fall, first of winter. So end of this year sometime, they would demolish the existing mall building. And I think there are a few other things that will have to go down along with that. Minor things, cosmetic things, and parking lot structures and things like that. And then they would begin construction as soon as the weather allowed. And, 1 year, 2 years till it's entirely done, but 1 year before, you could see the shape of it and some things might actually be in use. So very fast timeline. And the city doesn't plan, as I understand it, the city doesn't plan to hold that up. But the city, I guarantee, is going to want to make some changes because the developer only has to look at, the design, the architecture, the feasibility. They pay people to inform them on, city codes and state codes and UDOT, because UDOT would be involved here with, being right off of Main Street. UDOT requirements for certain entrances and exits and how they're designed and things like that. All of that's going to have to be factored. If this development is going to impact traffic, then they're going to have to factor in all of that. And that's where the city comes in, because the city can better inform that conversation and even maybe put some own requirements of their own on the developer than these experts who are very smart that developers pay to help them understand current ordinance and state code and UDOT preferences and things like that. So that conversation has begun. That's the news. Nothing has been clearly changed or taken off the proposal, or there haven't been any outright, oh, no, you're not doing that, or, oh, absolutely, this has to happen. None of that has happened yet. I've talked to a couple of different city council members about this, but they have been discussing it a lot. And there is a meeting coming up this week. Now, it's a neighborhood meeting. So this isn't, these are technically open to anybody that wants to show up, but these are neighborhood meetings. These are intended for the neighborhood that will be most affected to get an opportunity to weigh in on this first, because they will be the most affected. And so there is a neighborhood meeting coming that will happen this week, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able. Well, I'm going to be able to get out and maybe get some audio of this, because at this neighborhood meeting, the developer is going to present. So this will be the first time that we've heard from the developer themselves, and they'll have a presentation that will go into some more detail, I guess, on the property and the design and why they want to go this route. So that's happening this week. We'll hopefully have some audio from that if everything works out, and we'll bring that to you that will be on Friday's show before the movie show at 5. The soonest we'll be able to get to that. But that's where things stand. And again, it's been fascinating to see the interest from the public in this. Everyone seems to have an opinion, and I mean that in a positive way. Everyone seems to care what happens to this. One thing I will note, though, there were a few, but by far, calling it a minority of the comments would be an understatement, because this was just a few here and there scattered throughout thousands of comments on the KVNU Facebook page, saying just keep them all. That seemed to be no one really seemed to be of that mindset, other than a handful scattered throughout thousands of comments. Everyone else, what they were arguing about is what should be done. Some people don't like the idea of that much housing in that area, and the impact that might have on traffic. Though, as Mayor Daines told us, this is one part of Logan that is actually already set up for that much traffic. It handles that much traffic every day already. Adding that much housing to it, we're talking a few hundred units here. That isn't going to, considering that that's not a few hundred people on the road at all times 24/7. It's a few hundred people that are going to be on the road at different times, different work schedules, school schedules, family schedules, all of that. So that much traffic being added to that intersection is probably not going to be very noticeable. So it's already set up perfectly for that. But it will have an impact. It's going to have an impact on surrounding businesses, and obviously the goal is to do everything you can to make sure that's a positive impact, because there are other businesses that are located and will continue to be located in the same block. Outside of that, the Texas Roadhouse, for example, the restaurant there, as far as I know, they don't plan to go anywhere. So the goal, again, would be to make sure that businesses that are impacted positively. There's, the Old Man Theater location has turned into a little kind of strip mall sort of thing. That's not a strip mall. You know what I mean. It's a building with multiple businesses in it. I don't know what the kids call that these days. But this is going to require a lot of dotting I's and crossing T's, is what I'm getting at. And so to answer the listeners' questions, and again, we get these daily, and I love it. I love that people are this invested. I love that people care about what happens with this. I love that people like me have nostalgic memories of the mall, and that they have like a preference on what happens. That's all very cool stuff. If you'd like to read the comments again, it's I've reshared the original KVNU Facebook page post where most of the comments are. There are some other locations where they popped up as well, but the conversation is still going there. I've reshared that on our Facebook page if you want to go way in there or just see what others are saying. But to our listeners asking, that is the news. There is no news as of yet. No specific changes announced to the proposal, no agreement announced to the proposal, just talk is where we're at still. And again, neighborhood meeting with Logan City will happen this week. And I'm hoping that, unless the developer objects, I'm hoping that I can get out and get some audio of their presentation, and then we might be able to bring that to you on Friday's show. So we'll keep you posted, but thanks for asking. And always, the phone lines are open. If you have a preference, I'll tell you this, Logan City Council members do listen. If you want to try and influence them through the power of radio, give us a call. What do you think should happen to the mall? Do you like the proposal? Do you hate the proposal? Do you have a different idea that you think should be considered, or a partial idea to tweak or change that? Always willing to listen. 753-5868. We'll be back after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:30, and the news is brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. A crash on southbound I-15 in Box Elder County made quite the mess on the highway. According to Sergeant Cameron Roden with the Utah Highway Patrol, a box truck rear-ended a semi, causing dirt to spill onto the road near mile marker 364 Tuesday morning. The crash led to a complete blockage of all lanes. Crews quickly arrived on scene and worked to clear the debris. Roden said they managed to clear the road within about 30 to 60 minutes. No injuries were reported related to that crash. And again, looks like an earlier crash at 300 South and Main Street in Logan backed up traffic quite a ways, especially northbound traffic on South Main Street. But at the last report from Jason, looked like it was in the cleanup phase. So hopefully traffic is moving a little bit better in that area. Ogden City has put its fireworks restrictions back in place due to the hot and dry conditions. Starting today, it will be illegal to light fireworks or have open fires in parts of the city east of Harrison Boulevard, as well as areas along the River Trail. Mike Slater, Ogden Deputy Fire Chief, said the restrictions were initially removed over Independence Day because there wasn't as much concern about fuels and dry tinder, but that has changed. Violators could be cited and face a Class B misdemeanor and have to pay for firefighting costs if they set a fire. Slater said the restrictions will run through mid-October. Still, Slater said he hoped word would spread and that people would follow the new rules. And the Alpine School Board voted to temporarily pause the process of closing Lehigh, Linden, and Windsor elementary schools. However, board members acknowledged that the need to close these schools still exists. The decision was met with mixed opinions from board members and parents. Board member Sarah Hacken said there were so many variables and the best thing to do at this time is to wait. Julie King, another board member, acknowledged the impact of such closures on families, cities, and communities, saying it's hard. They're not immune to the impact that it has. The board voted to formally end the study process of closing the schools, citing the complex nature of everything involved, and if they want to close them in the future, the board will have to start the process all over. Yet the decision to conclude the closure study process with no further action was not unanimous, with 3 board members advocating to continue with the closure process. A group of parents had filed a lawsuit against the board claiming that the closure decisions were made without following proper legal procedures. Despite the current study process concluding, the board acknowledges the continuing need to consider school closures due to a variety of complex factors. Any future decisions to close the schools will require the study process to start over. KBNU News Time is 4:34.
If you've ever passed by 485 North Main, you've likely noticed how well kept the property is. The grass is always green and the flower beds are always well kept and in bloom. What you see on the outside is exactly what you'll find inside. Care and attention to detail. Exactly what you want when you're dealing with one of your most important senses, your hearing. Dr. Daines' love and care for the community has always gone beyond the front steps at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. So if you're not hearing as well as you used to, stop in at 485 North Main in Logan or visit them online at cachehearing.com.
Temperatures in Phoenix today for the 13th day in a row hit 110 degrees and on track to break the record 18-day streak. And triple-digit temps are bringing heat warnings to some 100 million Americans.
65 million people from Florida to California are under heat alerts. Phoenix is expecting the 13th consecutive day of temperatures of 110 degrees or higher. Most of California is seeing temperatures more than 15 degrees above normal. And Las Vegas could hit an all-time record of 118 degrees this weekend.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert. Day 6 of a manhunt in Pennsylvania for the murder suspect who escaped a jail in northeastern Pennsylvania. And investigators want to know why a drone was flying near the jail just before the breakout. 2 passengers on board an Allegiant flight, Flight 227, traveling Asheville, North Carolina to St. Petersburg, Florida, transported to the hospital upon the flight landing after the plane experienced severe turbulence. I'm Dave Packer, ABC News.
KBNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, low in the mid-50s, sunny, lower 90s on Thursday, sunny around 90 on Friday. It's been to 90 degrees today. It's 89 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture, the home of Chair Heaven. They sell a lot of chairs, including recliners. Always a better buy at U&I, downtown Logan, 28 West, 1st North. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Senior Branch Office Administrator Monique Benson, bringing you the daily financial market report on behalf of Financial Advisor Daryl Arnell and Edward Jones. Stock markets moved sharply higher on Wednesday after CPI data surprised to the downside for both headline and core inflation. The S&P 500 closed up around 0.7% on the day and is on pace to be up over 1.5% for the week. The Dow closed up 86 points at 34,347. The Nasdaq closed up 158 points at 13,919. The S&P 500 closed up 33 points at 4,472. And in the bond markets, 10-year Treasury yields were trading at 3.87%. In stocks of local interest, Home Depot was up $3.86 to $317.52. Lowe's Companies was up $2.68 to $232.11. Nucor was up $1.33 to $169.67. Thermo Fisher was up $6.66 to $525.92. Northrop Grumman was down $7.40 to $453.35. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up $1.10 to $75.93, and the spot price of gold was up $26.80 to $1,963.90. This has been today's financial market report brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Daryl Arnell, servicing investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you'd like additional information, please contact our branch at 435-713-6925.
Do you see yourself traveling, working part-time, or moving somewhere warmer when you retire? Your Edward Jones financial advisor wants to help make your retirement goals a reality. They can help you figure out where you are today and how to get where you expect to be. Working together, you can plan for what you want and be ready to take on anything unexpected along the way. Call one of the 7 Edward Jones branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. We talked about flooding earlier in the week and last week as well with Cache County Executive David Zook. Basically like this. We all expected it to be worse. It was worse than usual, water levels and things like that, but the flooding wasn't, which says a lot about the planning, the flood mitigation efforts that have gone in, the flood mitigation, permanent flood mitigation structures and designs to even certain parks throughout the valley where it's intended that they will flood in a high water year or high water spring. It worked. I mean, there were some problem areas. There were some bad spots. But for the most part, it was a lot milder flood season than anyone anticipated when we all started seeing how high those river levels were before it even really got warm. So all good news. It means what we're doing is working. It doesn't mean the flooding didn't happen. It means that it was contained, it was mitigated quickly, and things worked as designed. Another aspect of this, though, is that those water levels, again, some records were set for time of year. There were also some problem areas in certain curves or restrictions in river flows that come into the valley from out of the canyons that were made very, very obvious this year. And one of the things that's helping this discussion right now, helping to inform the discussion, is aerial footage that was obtained by Aggie Air Service Center drones. How was this done? Why was it done? What happens next? With the details, here's Craig.
Well, thank you, Jason. On a day in late May, when the Logan River was running at near capacity, Ian Gowing directed the launch of an Aggie Air Service Center drone over the river. Ian, who's the director of the Aggie Air Service Center, is joining us now. You had your pilot, Austin Washke, fly that unmanned aerial vehicle over the river from about First Dam right down through the city to the Logan River Golf Course and then out to an area by the Mendon Road. What were you looking for working with the people in Logan City and Nibley, and what was the result?
That is correct, yes. Well, the primary reason for flying it was to try and understand the extent of any potential flooding that we felt we may experience due to the sort of the high snowpack that we received earlier in the year. And so we flew a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing drone, and as you mentioned, we flew it from the First Dam down to the Logan River Golf Course, and then did another number of flights beyond that, trying to understand just how the extent of the flooding. And from that, we were able to capture imagery that clearly illustrated beyond the Logan River Golf Course the extent of the flooding. From the First Dam down to Logan River, the water primarily stayed within the channel, which it's supposed to do. And beyond that, obviously, the floodplain became inundated with the floodwater. And this could be clearly seen through the use of our imagery, more specifically the near-infrared imagery that we captured and the thermal imagery, which clearly showed the extent of the water.
How did this collaboration begin? Who called who?
Well, I was discussing with some colleagues at the Utah Water Research Laboratory. I just felt it would be a good idea to capture this potentially high flow that we possibly hadn't experienced in probably 20 or 30 years before. So I discussed this with the director of the Water Lab, Professor David Tarbotton, and another colleague, Dr. Beth Nielsen, and decided that we go about and potentially try and understand when we capture the peak in terms of which sort of day. And we're all in agreement that this would be a very good idea. And then potentially using the imagery, we could also collaborate with other colleagues at the Water Lab and conduct some hydraulic modeling.
So they were probably interested in just a real detailed picture of the flooding, and probably they wanted to see how well their mitigation efforts had worked.
Absolutely, yeah. From the imagery we collected, the pixel resolution was actually 4.3 centimeters. So it gave enormous clarity of just exactly where the water was topping the bank. And also it allowed Logan City to, as you mentioned, understand whether their flood mitigation was working and just how effective it was.
During that flight or those flights, where was Austin stationed while he was at the controls of the drone?
So the way that we operate is we program the drone with a flight plan prior to launching. So the drone follows a pre-programmed flight path from when we take off to when we land. And we were basically following the drone down from the water lab down to the golf course. And then we positioned ourselves along the river so that the drone was in line of sight at all times. We were fortunate to have what's called a certificate of authorization that allowed us to fly above sort of structures, homes, and above 400 feet. And this was obtained from the FAA.
I've got to believe years from now, or whenever this river is running high again, these images are going to be valuable.
Oh, absolutely, yes. It certainly allows Logan City and other municipalities to understand at what level the banks are, at what level flows or flow levels the river tops the banks. And then it allows them to understand where they need to put in sort of flood mitigation efforts.
Again, we're talking to Ian Gowing. He is the director of the Aggie Air Service. They fly drones. I think they have a fixed wing airplane too. But tell us just a little bit more about this service and about the typical clients you serve and what they ask you to do.
Oh, it is really quite varied. I mean, we do a lot of natural resource flights, looking at invasive aquatic weed. We've flown rivers to look at fish habitat, trying to understand the thermal regime of rivers for fish habitats. We're out actually now in California flying almond orchards and vineyards to understand water use in the state of California. We look at air quality. We have air quality sensors that we attach to our drones to understand air quality. So the array of sort of measurements that we can make is really quite broad.
From your distinctive accent, Ian, I'm guessing you're probably not a native of Hiram or Wellsville. Where are your roots, and how did you end up here in northern Utah?
That is correct. I used to work in England for the government carrying out investigation into river habitat, and a professor from Utah State University, Dr. Thomas Hardy, came over and visited me visited the company I worked for, and invited me actually back on a scientific exchange program with Utah State University. And I was given the opportunity to stay here for 3 years. And then several years later, I was invited back again. And, as they say, the rest is history.
Well, that's Aggie Air Service Director Ian Gowing, currently working on a project in California, who took some time to explain the Logan River flood stage work that they had done or are still doing. Thank you for your time, Ian.
Thank you so much.
Let's get back to Jason and to Bill now.
Thank you, Craig. And cool stuff. Speaking of drones, in general, they've popped up in my life a few different ways recently, and it's interesting to see how they're being used. Now, of course, one way was the big drone show in Salt Lake. I didn't go to that. I am going to. if they do that again. Because I saw some video, and I'm probably going to make people mad saying this. This is my take. And I fully respect anyone who disagrees. But I got to be honest with you. I watched some video of that drone show that Salt Lake did in lieu of fireworks, and it was cooler. I don't get me wrong. Whoever did the Hiram fireworks, that company, I don't know who did it. Whoever was responsible for it, they were amazing. That was I didn't know at my age that you could make a fireworks show still surprising to me and kind of interesting, actually. Like, you were kind of waiting, like, okay, what's going to happen next?
So it was very different from the previous year.
Yeah, they did some things that some might even say they did some things that might be considered trickery to fool the audience, including a fake finale. They did a finale, and then they paused just long enough that you saw some headlights start to come on. All the people parked on the street and at the rodeo grounds there and everything. And you start to see some headlights come on, and then the fireworks started again. And people, it was actually, you could hear laughter throughout that whole corner of the valley. Wow. I thought that was great. It was intentional, and it was great. But, yeah, so anyway, I'm a fan of fireworks shows, don't get me wrong. And whoever did the Hiram fireworks, whatever company was behind that, they deserve recognition. That said, the drone show in Salt Lake was cooler than fireworks could ever be. And that's just from the video I saw. So that didn't even include the sound and being there with the crowd. And so that's where I'm going to be next year if Salt Lake does that again. I want to see it in person one time. It amazes me they can be synchronized in this way and reliably, because it would only take one drone going rogue to screw up the whole thing. And it doesn't happen. It does. They do drop out, batteries fail, and things like that. But in general, it's just a really cool thing. They had a dragon. You know, I've seen attempts at dragons with fireworks, and as a dragon fan since I was 5, no, you're not pulling it off with the fireworks. I see where you're going, but you're not pulling it off. They had an actual, it looked like the flaming dragon in Fellowship of the Ring, the first Lord of the Rings movie. That fake firework that Frodo sets off, and it comes back on him. They had a drone dragon that was basically spanned the stadium. And it flew in that way. It was so amazing to see, even on video. So that's where I'm going to be next year. I'm sorry, fireworks purists. Drones also came up. Now this is not a sad story, but it was interesting to see how they were using the drones still. But DPS and search and rescue crews, when the 14-year-old boy went missing at Hiram Dam a couple of weekends ago. And tragically was found around 7 a.m. the next morning. He had drowned. His body was found there by the floating dock the next morning. They were using, traditional search boats and spotlights and dive crews, but they also had drones circling the shoreline and even up into the trees around Hiram Dam. Because remember, they weren't there were no one was sure what had happened, whether he'd gone missing in the water or whether he'd gone missing on land, maybe an abduction scenario. They had officers knocking on doors in neighborhoods around the entrance to the beach area there at the dam to see if they had maybe seen anything, a vehicle leaving at high speed, or heard anything like someone yelling for help. So they weren't sure, but they were using drones to search the very thick brushed areas on the steep slopes around the dam and the shoreline and things like that. And then this story, drones being used these drones, the footage they got through Aguirre and of the flooding in the river, they'll be used in city planning going forward. It allowed for a vantage point to show, even in time-lapsed video, where as Craig discussed there, where some of the weak points were and how bad things got or came close to getting bad at certain points. And so, steps can be taken before the next. It might be a while before we have a flood year like this one again, but steps can be taken before then. So very cool stuff. By the way, for those curious, Department of Public Service, someone asked how many drones they have, which is a great question, and I don't know. But I do know this little bit of trivia. They started out with one 5 years ago. It was actually controversial. It was expensive. It was, I think, nearly a $6,000 or $7,000 drone. Now, these aren't the drones that you see the kids flying around in a park. These are basically, they look like a scaled-down model of a helicopter. I mean, they're big, and they'll fly them.
Do they make a lot of noise? Or
no, the DPS one that I got to see. So they had it during the legislative session one year. They had it in the parking lot to show everyone, the media, and I stepped out for that, and it was surprisingly quiet. I mean, it was a lot louder than a regular drone, but it was surprisingly quiet for its size and the speed that we were at least told it could reach. But they used that the first time the DPS used that drone was on a flood. There was a bad flood in southern Utah, and I think it had actually taken some lives, and it had definitely ruined some buildings and property for sure. And they flew the entire floodplain, searching for people who may have been trapped, and also assessing the damage that was done. And they did that with a drone, and they wouldn't have been able to do that for weeks if they had to do it on foot or in vehicles, waiting for that temporary river the flood created to dry out. So they were able to do it on drones just as soon as the floodwaters subsided enough to make it practical to do. And that ended up really saving some property owners, and in one situation saving a life. They actually found someone who was out there, basically trapped by the floodwaters, and they weren't aware of that. They were going to put themselves in a bad spot. And they were able to avoid that because they had this drone, and they could actually talk to them through the drone and say, hey, don't go that way. It was just very, very nice stuff. They have talked about this. I don't think this will ever happen, but there have been discussions about using drones because another problem area that pops up a lot in southern Utah, those slot canyons in a rainstorm, the flash flooding that happens, those fill up very quickly, and you don't always have a place to go. People die in those. I think someone dies every year down there in Moab or has to be rescued at least. And so they're thinking about using drones for that. When these thunderstorms, they come in very quickly down there. When they come in, they usually just fly over, maybe a little lightning, a little rumbling, and that's it. But if they start to drop precipitation, they're actually thinking about having drones on hand. They can fly out like a remote control search and rescue crew to mark where people are. To make it easier for that way, search and rescue crews, if they know someone's in an area and they're going to be in trouble, they can get someone on the way there before. Yeah. So, and then here in northern Utah, and they are talking about using drones as part of search and rescue more often because of the nature of the search and rescue calls that have increased the most over the last few years since the start of the pandemic, which is people getting out without water, people getting out where they get lost, or they didn't look at the weather before, inexperienced people heading out on hiking trails and stuff like that. They feel they could send a drone out and get messages to people to have them head back, or to even just find them and locate them more quickly with a drone than heading up in traditional ways. So the state is looking at investing in a whole slew of them. We'll put it that way. We'll be back right after this.
You're in the market to buy a home. You're dreaming of a new home that you can fill with new memories, but new homes just aren't in your budget. Or are they? Visionary Homes wants you to know you don't have to buy a used home. Buy new. Buy now at Visionary Homes. As a trusted award-winning Utah home builder, Visionary Homes understands that your home is the center of your life, bringing friends and family together, creating memories you'll cherish forever. Buy new, buy now at visionaryhomes.com.
The landscaping season is now in full swing, and Canyon Landscaping is still booking for this season. For over 2 decades, Canyon Landscaping has been Cache Valley's leader of new and existing home landscaping projects. Spots are filling fast, so don't wait any longer for your outdoor living to become an extension of your home. To get your project going, request an appointment online at canyonlandscaping.com or call 752-3838. Let's get started on your yard. 752-3838. Canyon Landscaping. Look for the leaf.
That's it for Hour 1 of today's show, but stay tuned. Hour 2 will step into our monthly spotlight on Logan City School District. That's coming up in just a few minutes here on KVNU Logan.
Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. Breaking news and stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU.